You're listening to the Roots podcast by 12 Oaks, where we'll be joined by industry leaders to discuss and highlight the character, competency, and care that is required to successfully manage senior living portfolios.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Roots podcast, brought to you by 12 Oaks Senior Living. Today, I am joined by two of my most favorite people here at 12 Oaks. I have, of course, David Ensor, our Vice President of Sales and Marketing, and no stranger to the podcast, one of our most favorite guests, Catoe, Senior Vice President of Operations. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, and a pleasure to be here as usual.
Absolutely. Good. Well, seeing as we've got the two of you here, as we're sitting in the 12 Oaks romper room, all comfy and spread out, today's topic is sales and marketing, and we've got our two resident experts here to talk about that. So one of the things we pride ourselves on at 12 Oaks Senior Living is our ability to outpace the market, outpace our competitors in our sales and marketing efforts. And David, I understand you've actually done a little research on this. You've actually got data, and we love opinions very much here at 12 Oaks, but we really, really love data, right? And then we really, really, really love opinions backed by data. So, David, you've got some findings from our efforts on the sales marketing front in 2023. Why don't you share that with our vast podcast audience?
Absolutely. And this is data that, as much as I love to take credit for doing the research on this was actually provided to us by a third party that took all of the sales metrics, KPIs, lead to tour conversions, tour to move-in conversions, and broke it down by our percentage versus the rest of the industry. And there were really 5 metrics that we came out looking pretty good in comparison with our peers. The first being inquiry to move in. So once a person comes in as a lead, to moving that person in. For 2023 as a year, we converted 11% of our inquiries into move-ins versus the industry standard or the industry average of 9. So outpaced on that one. The second was, obviously, if you're going to get someone from inquiry to move in, you got to get them into tour first. With that one, we came in at 27%, which was not quite as high as our previous one, but 26% was the industry average. So we outpaced on that one. And the one that I'm really keen on, it's the biggest delta, I guess, is tour to move in. We came in at 40% versus 33% for the industry. Not only were we converting at a higher percentage on all those three metrics, we also did it faster than the industry. So we came in at average sales cycle of about 67 days versus an industry average of 182 days. So
That's quite a difference.
Significant.
pretty big difference there. Some people out there might be wondering, well, you're moving them in fast, but are they staying? We hit the double on this one.
All right.
Where our average length of stay is 512 days versus an industry average of 498.
Wow.
So 5 pretty key metrics to measuring sales success and effectiveness. And we came out looking pretty good on all 5.
That's awesome. That's great news. Well, you mentioned a double. I think that's a quintuple double,
Yeah.
right, in NBA parlance. So that's pretty impressive. So that's great success. Our relational selling techniques appear to be working. Aaron, how do you interpret this data? You uh, are a big fan of data, and so what do these numbers kind of tell you?
It tells me that 12 Oaks intentionality by no accident, intentionality with the way that we have staff training and support and coaching have resulted in objective data that people move in longer, stay longer, move in quicker at a higher conversion rate. And once they come in the door, it's certainly never a done deal, but my gosh, there's something really special about 12 Oaks that people are choosing to move to the communities. And I think that's done through several different ways, five different ways that we focus on. However, I'll let you lead and see where we go from here.
Well, yeah, so that's a perfect segue into something I've heard about. It's called the five vitals.
They are.
Right? So the five vitals are foundational to our relational selling techniques. Uh, David, you want to take a crack at telling us what the five vitals are?
I would absolutely love to. So these are five functions, I guess you would say, that we've identified that if we do well on all five of these, generally we're going to win more than we lose. They are attunement, which is connecting with the person in front of you, and not just listening to what they say, but understanding the feeling and the emotion behind that, and all those different things that go with that. Urgency, which is um, it can be attributed to how quickly we're getting uh, to our leads, which is definitely something that we pay attention to, but also um, helping the prospective resident through that process with some urgency too. Um, the next, obviously, is we have our CRM aligned Sherpa. Um, you have to have a good CRM and a good process for managing your leads through the process. So that is number three. We have what we call top 10 and wrap up, which is an opportunity for each community team to spend some dedicated time daily focusing on the prospective residents that are looking at doing something right now. We need the most help right now. It's kind of the concept of many hands make light work, right? Collaboration, those kinds of things. So making sure that we're getting multiple perspectives with every lead to just make sure we don't miss something. And then wrap up is kind of more about accountability, right? We said we were going to do this today. How did we do on that? Um, that's number four. And then number five is what we call creative follow up, which is another kind of arm, I think, to attunement. It's a way for us to our communities to differentiate themselves, and more importantly, I think, to help the prospective resident or family member of that resident feel heard and seen by our team. It's a way of us kind of putting our money where our mouth is and showing rather than telling. Um, we found that if we can do all five of these really well, that's generally what leads to those numbers we just talked about.
Can I expand on attunement some? Would that be all right?
Of course.
Yeah, David was right on with the definition, but I want to add an additional way to understand. Metaphors seem to help people understand concepts. So with attunement, for those in the audience who've ever ridden in an automobile with a manual dial radio where you turn the knob and you're on a station, and on one side it's fuzzy, then you come back and it's perfectly clear, then you may go a little far and it's fuzzy again, and you come back and you're tuned in, you're dialed in to that station. That's how attunement works, except substitute the radio station with an emotion. And here's what's really important about understanding the prospect's emotions is we teach that emotions are signals of what to do. Now, I want you to hear me say this. It doesn't mean the signal's always right, but it's a signal of what to do. For example, anger is a signal that something's out of alignment. Joy is a signal that something is fulfilled. Now, with prospects, there's all sorts of emotions to be untangled. And in these emotions, if someone is feeling fear or anxiety or apprehensions, that signal is telling the prospect to move away. It's a safety emotion. I need to be safe and I need to move away from this. I need to move away from this viable option of senior housing. I need to move away from this leasing counselor. And it's a movement away. Now, feelings of peace and comfort, those are signals to move toward. And so they move towards the viable option of senior housing, move towards the messaging of the sales counselor. And so it's very, very important as we teach all our leasing staff and skilled professionals that they are attuning to understand what signal is being given to this prospect through the emotion so that they can navigate and connect and untangle and advance to the next logical step. That's why attunement's so important. And it often seems people misunderstand it at times.
No, that's great. No, thank you. Appreciate the clarification. So, I mean, there's a lot to this, and there's a lot that goes behind the scenes. Um, Aaron, how do you impart all this information to, our 40 communities spread across the United States from Milford, Massachusetts to Pampa, Texas? How do you get all the marketing directors on the same page?
It is with intentionality. Again, metaphors are a great way to understand. And I was speaking to a gentleman about this yesterday. Is when a professional selling member is in the selling zone and they're doing all this creative follow-up and this planning, it can be chaotic. It can be really, really fast paced, hence the urgency of the vital that David spoke to. And in that, it's like a race car going around a track. And this race car is going 170 miles per hour around this track, and it's fast. If you try to work on that car around the track, things get damaged, things can get hurt, machines get broken, people get hurt. And so you want to intentionally, and this is important, get off the racetrack into the garage. That's where something can be worked on and made stronger or reinforced or repaired. And so the very first step, Greg, to that answer of how do we do it is we get the sales staff out of the racetrack, so to speak, in a protected setting at a conference center or at the 12 Oaks home office located in Dallas. And we have a workshop with intentionality on the skills that need to be developed. So that's the very, very first step. It goes on. Did that provide some clarity of how it started?
It does. It certainly does. Thank you. So, to be able to enjoy the success we've had in terms of move-ins, it all starts with the leads and the lead base. So, David, how's it been in terms of lead generation? What efforts have you undertaken and what successes have you enjoyed in terms of lead-based management?
Yeah, I mean, getting your sales team the right people to work with to help, I think, is obviously key in converting move-ins because that's where it starts. We've been very focused on efficiency is not the right word, but kind of fine tuning our process and really focused in on some of the digital space, and everyone's trying to optimize their search engine optimization, drive costs down. But one thing I think that also is very key is kind of brand and name recognition. So we spent a lot of intentionality on how can we get that out into the local markets, and by doing that, it would allow us to drive down kind of cost per lead. We like literally last week had some meetings where we were looking at some data, and through a lot of what we've been doing, we actually grew our organic lead traffic in our database by 61% in Q2 versus Q1. And drove down our cost per lead by, I think it was like 14% in doing that. So again, being very intentional with how we're managing that effort based on the location, the socioeconomic area, finding leads in Kingwood, Houston area is a lot different than, Tucson, Arizona or Pampa. So getting very bespoke, I guess, and fine tuning that process. We're seeing some pretty good success. And I think that also plays into some of these numbers as we look at how we did last year.
It does. And I guess to wrap it up, the real success, of course, is manifested in occupancy. And year over year, we were able to grow occupancy by over 14 points. So, 12 Oaks portfolio wide had significant and tremendous portfolio success. Many communities at or near the 100% occupancy mark. And, a lot of struggling communities have kind of turned it around. And, through the efforts of our sales and marketing team, led by Aaron and David here, we've enjoyed tremendous occupancy growth across our 12 Oaks portfolio. So, thank you, Aaron. Thank you, David, for another wonderful podcast. And with that, we'll bid you adieu to next time. Take care.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Roots Podcast by 12 Oaks. Get connected with us on social media and at 12oaks.com.